Throughout our lived experience here on earth, all of us will experience crisis in our life. And crisis is an invitation to shatter all of your belief systems about the reality in which you were experiencing. It is an eject button out of false dichotomy, somewhere in the middle, if we choose to accept that invitation. Oftentimes, crisis will push us further into dichotomy or further into polarity because it's what is known. It's what has previously felt safe. But if we choose to accept the invitation to begin creating from within and without a new paradigm, a path that has not yet been forged. And let's face it, we are in the process of making these decisions in crisis because that's what we're faced with. But if we choose to press that eject button and buoy ourselves up and out of false dichotomy, we're now placed in a whole new game, a whole new atmosphere, a new adventure, a new path. And we're the ones forging that path. But in order to do that, we must be willing to put on our hiking boots and get out our machetes and carefully begin carving our way through dense thicket and dark shadow. We have to be willing to make mistakes, to get lost from time to time, to fall down and get back up again. It requires devotion. It requires deep introspection. It undoubtedly means that you will disappoint people. You'll get confused. And sometimes it will take you, a while to carve out that next little step and that next little step. But you're met with a crisis because going back is no longer an option. And you feel a calling within. You hear the whisper. There's another way. There's another way. It doesn't have to be either or, black or white, one or the other, good or bad, right or wrong. There is a middle path. Your compass has been recalibrated, and your sovereignty is on lock. Hello, beautiful beings of light. I hope you all are well. It's been quite some time since I've done any vlogging or any updates about my personal journey. And many of you have noticed my absence from social media these last few months. So before I do anything else, I wanted to thank you sincerely and from the heart for continuing to check up on me and see how I'm doing, for giving me your love and encouragement. And it's been really wonderful when I am able to pop on social media to be able to connect heart to heart with you all. And if I haven't been able to get back to you, it is not due to a lack of desire. It simply hasn't been conducive for me these past several months to be in any kind of normalcy when it comes to schedule or routine. And so I'm going to talk about that. But just thank you. Thank you for continuing to be there in love and support and in your energy during this time, this raucous, chaotic time where everything's shifting and everything's changing, and everything is shaky ground underneath. I think one of the reasons that I've been reticent in, posting an update is because this is extremely complicated for me in my own life, and it's taken me quite a bit of time to try to integrate and assimilate, understand much of what I'm trying to endeavor. And I haven't really known how to go about even conveying the journey that I've been on, this past 10 months or so. But if I back it up to when I first left you, or when I last left you guys, I was, just going through this diagnosis process, and was still trying to make sense out of the procedures and whatnot that I had gone through. And simultaneously, those procedures were very traumatic, and it opened up a lot of past wounding that I had experienced, given the unique status of my genetic templating. And that's something in and of itself that, in my lived experience, other humans have found difficult to understand in the reality that I have lived. So there's been a lot that I've needed to, kind of make sense in my own heart and my own mind before I felt that I was in a space and place to discuss really anything. And coupled with the fact that I have been doing all of this intense fasting, really around October, I think I just went into a space of silence where I really felt incapable of articulating, verbalizing, vocalizing anything, and just kind of went into this. It's tranquility and peace mixed with confusion and trepidation and observer. And it was like all of this, fasting was pulling in all of these fractaled aspects of self that I thought had been integrated, and in reality they had not. And I was pulling all of these parts and pieces back to myself, and it required a level of solitude and silence. And even now, as I feel myself now starting to move out of it, it's been this deep I don't know if I want to call it resistance, but it hasn't felt like resistance. It's just been more of this kind of, it's not ready yet. It's not ready yet kind of feeling. Juxtapositioned against, you know, the passage of time, of linear time, and a feeling like I do need to articulate the lived experience that I've been having. So that's, you know, the first reason why I've been kind of remote. So I think the first thing you need to understand about my physical form is that my genetic templating is different to the vast majority of the human population. I was born with a rare genetic condition called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And it is a faulty collagen gene, which collagen comprises your connective tissue, and it's the fabric of the human body. So everything is in the human body contains connective tissue, and my connective tissue operates differently than a quote unquote, you know, normal person. So most of what's known about how to treat or help someone in the Western medical complex, it all revolves around this template of a quote unquote average normal person, human. So already when I have something that I need to seek attention for, it's going to be unique and a special case. And given the fact that the mass that I found was in my breast, which is comprised all of connective tissue, it makes the situation quite a bit different than it would for, you know, someone else in a similar experience. i.e., I didn't know if the weight and pressure of a mammogram would be too much, given the fact that with the type of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome that I have, or that I was born with, it creates fragile skin and tissue. It tears easily. There's bleeding tendencies. Most of you know my joints dislocate upon movement, and that's because everything rips and tears and stretches, and there isn't as much glue holding my body together as a quote unquote normal person. So there were a lot of complications with just going through the initial steps of diagnoses, and it required that I jump through many hoops. Doctors wanted, you know, certification from other doctors that it was safe to perform, you know, what would be considered standard procedure. And it was fraught with a lot of complexity during a time where, you know, you're already in a lot of fear and confusion. And once I was finished with that process, I was left with a piece of metal in my breast, which I was not aware of and I did not consent to. And it also took me quite a bit of time to heal from the MRI procedure that I had done, because again, one of the complications with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is a inability or a difference in the metabolizing of any kind of substance. So, for instance, the lidocaine, which was used in biopsy, metabolized through my system almost immediately, instantaneously, and I could feel the entire procedure. the contrast that was used, the contrast dye that was used in the MRI was extremely detrimental to my system because I'm so sensitive to substance. There's a whole host of very complex and strange manifestations with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome that most doctors aren't aware of, haven't had any experience with. And so everybody is kind of stumbling around in the dark to start with, even those which we would credential, as expert. It's a different type of reality for someone with rare condition moving through Western medical complex. So that in and of itself was very traumatic. And by the time I left you last, I had gotten to the stage of consulting a surgeon. So in the Western medical world, there's typically 3 ways in which a insured covered cancer diagnosis will be treated. And that's to either radiate, poison through chemo, or cut through surgery. Those are typically the 3 main avenues. Yes, there are other types of treatments, but those are going to be considered specialized in some way or experimental, and they're not going to be the 3 main avenues that are initially traversed. And in my case, due to Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, immediately radiation and chemotherapy would be out. I would not be a good candidate for that. Leaving surgery as the one and only avenue that would be a recommended treatment path for me to take. And in meeting with that surgeon, it was advised that although there was only cancer detected in one breast, that I remove both, and also then remove lymph node as well, or what they call a sentinel lymph node. However, and this is a big however, in understanding the viability of these options, statistics and doctors will only look at whether or not your heart is still beating, essentially, after a certain time frame. They look at survival and not quality of life. So in my case, endeavoring surgery would mean that I would have to overcome cardiac dysautonomia or autonomic dysfunction of the heart. So surgery is inherently dangerous for someone with my genetic makeup to begin with. Then you have the poor wound healing, the tissue tearing, the bleeding tendencies, which makes the surgery more dangerous. So now you're not just concerned with surviving the surgery in itself or the recovery. You are also looking at intense scarring and the possibility of the wound not healing. There's a lot of other complication, which could typically be overcome through other modalities, but given that it's the removal of cancer, I was told that was not a viable option as well. So that made that path inherently dangerous. Also coupled with the fact that the removal of a tumor can also cause metastasis, and the lymph node being removed can also cause problems with lymphatic drainage later. And although there was no detection of cancer in the lymph node, surgeon that I saw would not agree to do the surgery without taking the lymph node. In addition to that, there was no guarantee that I could have any kind of reconstruction due to the fact that my wounds heal much slower than a quote-unquote average person. I would be looking at multiple surgeries, at least a year bedbound, and then the body mechanics in addition would also be thrown off as I experience dislocation of every joint upon movement. So again, very complicated and no real clear-cut answers in the path that was laid out before me through the Western medical complex. So, what do you do when you are faced with this, perceived dichotomy? This either or situation where you can't do nothing, and the something that you're being presented with also doesn't bode well for, an outcome of continuing to be physically embodied in any kind of way that would be considered, a quality of life. You then try to find another way. You try to, carve a new path. And immediately that was the road that I began traveling down. Rationally, it made sense. And emotionally, I also have had the lived experience of many, many years of being uniquely abled, of going through the testing, the hospitalizations, the learning how to walk again, being in wheelchair, being incapacitated, being bedbound, being housebound. And that just was not something that I was willing to move backwards into, having learned the lessons that I've learned over these past, several decades. So that's where I began, trying to find an alternate way, a different way of going about this situation. I began reading about the Warburg effect. I began looking into the work of Dr. Walter Longo and his approach to modified fasting. I began looking at autophagy fasting. I began to implement almost immediately certain things, like removing all sugar from the diet. I began experimenting with fasting and the length and period of time it would take to get my body into a state of what's known as autophagy. And autophagy, it means self-eating. And so there were cases of people that through fasting and diet had completely cured themselves of cancer through this practice of autophagy fasting. And when I would then break fast, it was learning how to eat mostly cruciferous vegetables. And I found some resources online about supplement protocols, and you just begin to open yourself up to new ways of looking at things, new ways of approaching it, new ways of treating it. And I just immediately thrust myself into the information that I was reading and endeavoring to take action upon. Unfortunately, my diagnosis is also coming at a time where much of the information about how to approach, health and recovery and dis-ease and everything surrounding the human body is being heavily censored. And the information that I was able to access just a few months ago has, already begun to be removed. And so you're trying to source credible information. You're trying to look at medical publication. You're researching, all of this while simultaneously trying to implement that, and also simultaneously still, trying to live your life, and in my case, as a mother to a child, to a high needs child, homeschooling, being a part of a co-op and volunteering with teaching, and, keeping up a household and just life. And everything seemed to be going, kind of at warp speed. And I'm learning how to, test my blood every day, and, trying to count out and weigh everything, and trying to push a little bit further with the fasting while simultaneously trying to take on board supplements. And of course, then you read about, one thing, and then you'll read something else that completely contradicts it. And that is just kind of the nature of this whole paradigm that I was thrust into. And everything is another rabbit hole. And it just is very complicated, kind of isolating position to be in. And I took it on with fervor and with gusto, and but it's been a lot to adjust to. And sometimes the constant restriction and the constant daily fasting and everything by Christmas time was really beginning to be difficult. Also, the supplements. Initially, I was looking to purchase supplements to satisfy, an entire list that was a protocol that I felt like I needed to be on. But then as you begin to do research on supplements, then you realize that all supplements are not created equal. There's a lot of fake supplements. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot. So once I started getting the hang of the fasting and the taking in of supplements, then it became about, okay, how am I going to fund this? Because none of this is covered by my insurance. And how am I going to get quality supplements? I need to research, various different supplement companies and muscle test and see which ones I should be taking, which ones, probably aren't right for me. And in the interim to all of this, trying to find any sort of doctor that would be willing to take me on that is covered under my insurance. And that's still something that I'm trying to move through in this now moment. So what am I doing to treat at this stage in the game? So as I mentioned, number 1 is no sugar at all. Number 2 would be daily fasting and hoping to reach at least an 18-hour mark and beyond, because autophagy typically happens around 18 hours of fasting. And so typically I'm fasting between 18 and 24 hours. And then when I break fast, I'm trying my utmost to remain below a 500 calorie mark. In a modified fast, if you stay under certain parameters, you can keep your body kind of in a fasted state. When I do break fast, everything needs to be organic. It's mainly cruciferous vegetables, which would be like broccoli and cauliflower. I'm doing a lot of spinach. Very low protein. You have to stay under 20 grams of protein a day. Above that mark, it can also feed the cancer if you're in a state of ketosis. Under 20 grams of carbohydrates a day and as close to 0 as you can get. Which, as you can imagine, is very, very restrictive and very difficult to achieve from a long-term perspective. I'm doing daily sauna as much as my routine will allow. I have a sauna and a far infrared sauna bag that I use. And so my goal with that is to be at least 45 minutes, which also helps with lymphatic drainage and helps the body stay in a state of autophagy. Blood monitoring my glucose and my ketones to see where I'm at on what's called a GKI index, to keep myself in this high state of ketosis, which helps you achieve a certain level of autophagy. I'm doing daily castor oil packs with certain essential oils. I am doing many, many, many supplements, which if I can, and as I'm putting this together, I can maybe do a list of the supplements I'm doing. I am doing a alkaline water. I've done several different courses of methylene blue. I gosh, let me make sure, run through this list. I'm doing so many things. Oh, I also have been exploring the work of Dr. Hulda Clark, and have done a 20-day parasite cleanse, and then I do a weekly parasite cleanse as well. Other main factors is the toxins that can be in your environment, in your food, in the products that you use. So I've had to change all of the products that I use on my skin and for deodorant and for cleansing, and I'm mostly making a lot of these products myself. Again, sourcing food, sourcing vegetables, sourcing supplements that are, safe to eat, has an exponential price tag attached to that. So that's been another steep learning curve, learning where to source the products that are quality and still somehow be able to obtain them. Many, many, many changes, and there's many more that I'd like to do. I've also been grounding and earthing, obviously meditation, obviously epigenetic meditation, visualization. I would still love to be able to get a grounding mat for my bed. I would love to be able to get a right frequency machine. I've been drawn to the frequency of bees lately, and I've been listening to a lot of bee, like sound, vibrational sound that was taken inside of a beehive. I've been experimenting with different frequencies. Gosh, there's so many things. Well, that's mainly it off of the top of my head. As I go through this, if I think of more, I will, try to put them up on screen. In regards to treating doctors right now, I have a few leads that I'm going to be following up on. Other than that, everything else that I would like to endeavor is behind a very large paywall. And at this point in time, I have been unable to be able to, go through those doors. That would look like, seeing a local holistic doctor or naturopath. Again, that's not covered under my insurance. That would look like several institutes that are doing a different type of surgery where you would either insert a probe into the tumor and it would freeze it. That's known as cryoablation. Or there's another institute in which is doing frequencies. Again, that's all self-pay. I have reached out to several supplement companies and asked if they would be willing to sponsor me, and I haven't received much by way of response yet. I've also looked to find any grants that might be available for those seeking, a holistic path. Again, that's something that requires a lot of time and research and a lot of form filling, and much of it is on a reimbursement basis. So there are many things that I've still like to try. I'm also making some changes to the nutrition aspect, and going to be trying to phase some things out, still being able to maintain what I'm doing, the protocol that I'm doing now, sustain it into the future is also a question I don't have an answer to yet. And I think that's one of the most difficult things about the road less traveled is that there's no paradigm for this. There's no scaffolding for this. There's no book you can buy. There's no network of, doctors you can just phone up and see, or, specialists that are waiting to help you. This is all new, and it's all very fractaled and scattered, and it's a lot of hunting and looking and trying and experimenting, and you don't know if what you're doing is impacting the physical body in the way that you're hoping that it does. You are following your guidance system, you're tapping into your intuition, you are making decisions from a place of groundedness and neutrality, not when you're in a fear state, not when you're in a meltdown, not when you're, tired and exhausted, and you're just trying to see your way bit by bit. And trying to remain in that space while still living life, enjoying life. Over the holidays, I was really drawn to begin delving into philosophy. And there's a term that was coined by Nietzsche, amor fati, which means to love one's fate, and more specifically, to love one's fate so completely that you would be willing to live out that experience again and again and again. And through this process, I've been learning how to love my fate and squeeze everything out of each and every day that I can. And some days that looks like I'm getting so much done and I feel like I'm on track and I'm on time and I'm in a flow state. And other days it feels like I'm not doing any of that. But how can I still embrace that and love that and let go? And I feel like we are, as a collective, all being placed in these scenarios of false dichotomy, where it's either or, this or that, good or bad, this side or the other. And we're all coming into the awareness now that there are other ways and there are other paths that we can traverse. And although that's the first step, you still have to be able to take that first step then out into the wilderness, out and beyond. And you have to get comfortable not knowing. And that's where I've been, in this space of getting comfortable with not knowing, but trusting my inner guidance system, trusting my discernment, trusting my intuition, trusting my lived experience, trusting my higher self, trusting that the universe is taking care of me, trusting that what is the highest and best will unfold before me. And so I don't know if this is working or it's not working. I believe it to be so. I know how I feel inside my body. I know that, it hasn't gotten any bigger. I don't know how I'm going to fund any of this. I don't know some days how I'm going to make it to the next day. I don't know. But I'm willing to try, and I'm willing to embrace it, and I'm willing to try to love every bit of it. And that's the space and place I'm at in this now moment. And that might change tomorrow, but I still feel hopeful. Every day I feel hopeful that everything is unfolding in the way that it's supposed to. So how could I not love my fate?
I just want you close to me.
And I love you so very much. I'm sending you all big, 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 big love. Bye.
We've been on this battlefield. Will you
Just wanted to say I love ya.
off your shield?
Scully loves ya.
Please
Bye.
just